Miami welcomed back Jimmy Butler, and he did what Jimmy does, dropping 30 points to help lead a furious comeback, and the Heat cruised to an easy victory after returning home following their 6-game road trip. We break down Butler's big game and a comeback for the ages on today's Locked On Heat.
You are Locked On Heat, your daily Miami Heat podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, welcome to Locked On Heat, your daily podcast on the Miami Heat. Whether you're tuning in on YouTube or your favorite podcast app, thanks for making Locked On Heat your first listen every day. I'm Wes Goldberg, editor at allyoucanheat.com, here with David Ramil. Both of us are credentialed Heat media members. Got a great show for you today. We're handing out credit cookies. We've got questions about whether or not the Heat will stick with this starting lineup that they got in this win going forward. But first, today's episode is sponsored by Prize Picks. Download the Prize Picks app today and use the code LOCKEDONNBA to get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. Prize Picks. Run your game. Also, a reminder that your favorite podcast now has a newsletter introducing the Locked On Heat Daily Newsletter. One stop for ultimate team and league coverage delivered right to your inbox. Sign up for free now at LockedOnDaily.com. That's LockedOnDaily.com to start your day with the all-new free Locked On Heat newsletter. We are recording this on Monday night after the Heat beat the 76ers 106-89. The Heat come back from 19 points down thanks to a big return performance from Jimmy Butler, some unexpected contributions from the bench, and a big third quarter reversal. The Heat outscored the Sixers 35-16 in the third to erase the deficit and take the lead. David, what stood out to you about that third quarter?
Oh, Tyler Hero, for sure. I think they were playing very kind of freely. I think that they started that comeback in the second quarter. They were down 19, obviously. They were able to cut the lead to 3 at the half. A lot of that due to Jimmy Butler just being as dominant as he was, getting easy trips to the line, hitting some key shots, doing everything that he's done. But their defense really kind of turned it around. And from that point, it didn't seem like they were out of it anymore. Like we've seen this team, not just this season, but in the past, kind of say, oh, well, you know what? We're down by a large lead. We can't possibly come back. It's going to just be this grind. They played very loosely, I felt, in terms of their overall offense. And Tyler just kind of clicked that gear that he has, as we've talked about in recent episodes. Like he just was phenomenal. 16 of his 18 points, I think, came in that third quarter. And he was really responsible for helping Miami not just seal the deal on that comeback, and as Philadelphia kept trying to keep pace, but helping Miami push ahead. So that was what really stood out to me, is the whole freedom with which Miami was playing, and just kind of this ease, despite playing at home. We've seen them at home. Like they've given up these big leads. It's kind of the same offense, kind of clawing through the mud, kind of trying to figure things out. No, that wasn't the case. It was just, it felt like a much more different version of the offense, plus Tyler Hero being the head of the stake and helping to ignite that comeback.
Yeah, they made 4 3-pointers in the first half total.
7 of 13.
They were 4 of 20.
Quarter, yeah.
And then,
yeah.
But they made 4 in the first 5 minutes of that third quarter. Like they just came out and they're like, what bad 3-point shooting? We're on fire. What are you talking about? Like Spoelstra uses ignitable all the time. They weren't like, they didn't even ignite. They came out on fire. There was no ignition. It was just going. And Duncan Robinson had 2 of those 3-pointers. He was great in the second half. Tyler Hero, like you said, a lot of points in that third quarter. Jimmy Butler, I thought, really sort of changed things just with his ability to get to the rim. It was the Heat have been shooting well over the last several games, but they were, with Jimmy Butler out, kind of missing that interior presence. And with Jimmy in there drawing the 13 fouls, he goes a perfect 13 for 13 from the line, 30 points overall. With his engagement in this game overall, it just balanced the floor a little bit more. And you look at Miami's issues in the past, it's been getting outscored in the paint, but you look tonight, they were right there. The 76ers, 48 points in the paint, Miami 44. That's just, for all intents and purposes, that's a tie in the paint. You just can't get blown out in the paint when you're a 3-point shooting team, which evidently the Miami Heat are a 3-point shooting team, 5th in the league in 3-point shooting, 3-pointers made per possession entering this game. And it looks like it's going to, I don't know, they shot 29.5%, but that's mostly because of it was a bad first half. The second half was great. And it kind of reminded me, I asked Eric Spoelstra about this after the game, like being able to stick with that identity. And he said, we are getting a bit better at that. How many times last year, David, would we see them kind of go cold from 3-point range and then just sort of give up on it and just settle for those mid-range jumpers and then get outscored because those twos are going in, but the other team's making threes. And last time I checked, 3 was more than 2, and the Heat would just be on the wrong side of that equation over and over and over again. Next thing you know, they have a bottom 10 offense in the league. And it kind of so my wife and I like to go to New York, right? And we go to New York several times a year, and we're trying to become regulars at a bar. And we found this one bar on the Lower East Side, and we said, okay, every time we go to New York, we go 2 or 3 times a year. Every time we go to New York, we got to go to this bar because this will just be our New York bar. How cool would it be to have a New York bar that we could be regulars at? So we go and we go and we go. So we go to New York a couple weekends ago, and it's the last night we're there. We still haven't gone to that bar, and I look at my wife. I'm like, I'm too tired. I'm too, frankly, hungover. I don't have it in me to go to this bar. And she goes, no, we have to go, or else we're going to put at risk all the work that we've done over the last year. We got to go. And I said, no, what? You're right. I look at her, you're right. We go. I think we think the bartender remembers us. We think we're doing the right thing. The moral of the story here is, even when it hurts, even when you think it's not working, even when you don't want to do it, if you want to create a new identity, you've got to stick with it. And I thought the Heat did that in the second half tonight. And because they did it, they were able to come back in that third quarter because they were able to catch fire from 3-point range. I thought that was a huge story of this game.
That's a good point. I maybe the comparison might have been a little off there, but I get what you're getting at. Like, sometimes you have to push through these habits. They wind up taking 44 3-point attempts, despite the fact that they only shot 29% overall. But it was sticking to the identity what we've seen this season. But they were able to pepper it in with some really solid performance from Jimmy Butler, like being able to get to the rim, being able to get to the line, etc. Like, that was necessary, but it freed up those 3-point opportunities, and they were able to capitalize on them despite a first half where they shot so woefully. So I totally understand this idea of wanting to continue to lean into this new identity, because eventually that's what's going to be able to bail you out of these tricky situations, so long as you can continue to mix it up on occasion as well by being able to get to the rim. And I think it was a difference. We should point out no Terry Rozier in the starting lineup. So Jimmy Butler, we'll talk about the starting lineup throughout the show, but Jimmy Butler back in the starting lineup, obviously very aggressive, as you said, getting to the rim, being able to draw fouls, all the things that we know Jimmy can do. And that made such a huge difference for Miami.
That was the variation, right?
Yeah.
I mean, the Heat went to the line 23 free throw attempts for the Heat in this game, 12 for Philadelphia. And I don't know that they deserved all 12 of those free throws either. But that was the difference. You talk about this all the time. Like, when this team can't get to the free throw line, they don't really have that other thing. This is not a great team converting, obviously, in the restricted area. The mid-range shot is something they're trying to basically eradicate from the offense, and for good reason. And so what's the other thing going to be if those threes aren't going in? And for a lot of this game, it was just Jimmy Butler muscling his way to the rim. Tyler Hero also got to the line a couple of times. Some other players here and there sprinkled in some free throws, but Jimmy Butler being 13 of the 23 trips to the line, that's a big deal.
Absolutely. Yeah. A good game, man. It was fun to watch this team being able to respond. And I know you could point to Philadelphia. Look, they're struggling, obviously. They had a hard time trying to find anything. They were without Tyrese Maxey, who's been a Heat killer, which didn't prevent rookie Jared McCain from going off, and he had a phenomenal game early on.
What'd you think of Embiid? He looked bad.
He looks bad. He looks bad out there. Yeah.
I saw him in warm-ups, and so he wasn't even supposed to play. So maybe that's something worth including here, is that he was going to be probable and then got downgraded to doubtful and then got back upgraded to probable. Like, you don't really see that kind of swing, but that's Joel Embiid's health for you, I suppose. And there's Philadelphia. They're saying, you know what, Embiid's going to warm up with the intent to play, and everybody's kind of looking around at the arena like, what are you talking about? I thought he was doubtful. And so he goes out and he warms up, and I'm standing 5 feet away from him as he's doing his warm up, and he looks slimmer. Like, you keep hearing it. I'm like, nah, he does. He looks slimmer. He looks like he's in shape. And then you watch him play, and you're like, this guy's not in shape. And maybe there's, he's tired. He's some sort of illness. He's tired. He's just working back from this knee injury, which was apparently more severe than we thought. But he looks bad. He's not moving. He's kind of doing that thing where he just goes from free throw line to free throw line. He doesn't really run the full length of the court, and really won't. I don't know, man. It's bad vibes for Philly right now.
Yeah, the shots weren't falling for him. He was flopping a little bit. He just didn't look aggressive either. It looked like the conditioning was off. A lot of different factors there. Yeah. But, I also give a lot of credit to Bam Adebayo, because as much as Bam struggled offensively, and he certainly did, Defensively, I think he really did a good job of using his physicality. We've already known that Bam is capable of not necessarily matching up or limiting Embiid when Embiid gets it going, when he's able to draw fouls the way he has historically. It's a different ball game. But this version of Embiid that's not fully engaged, he really can't handle that kind of physical presence that Bam brings. Bam just throwing an arm there, kind of shoving him a little bit, trying to keep him away from his spots, contesting everything. And Miami's defense overall, really great in bringing the double, making sure that they could limit these kind of easy looks that Embiid is used to getting, et cetera. So really great defensive masterclass, I think, for this team.
When was the last time Bam
points, that's impressive.
Only 89 points. That's a big part of the story here. Only 16 points for the Sixers in that third quarter where Miami scored 35. When was the last time Bam out-rebounded Joel Embiid?
Yeah, that rebounding battle was phenomenal.
13 to 8. Bam and Jimmy combined for 23 of Miami's 53 rebounds. That's good stuff there. A lot more to get to in today's episode. We've got credit cookies. We've got questions about the starting lineup. We've got questions about Drew Smith. Who should be playing more? Who should be playing less? All of that coming up on Locked On Heat.
Today's episode is brought to you by Prize Picks. Prize Picks is the best place to get real money sports action with over 10 million members and billions of dollars in award winnings. It has made daily fantasy sports accessible to everybody. And all you've got to do is pick more or less on at least 2 players for your shot to win up to 100 times your cash. You can run your game all season long on Prize Picks. It's so easy to use. Believe me, you'll really appreciate it. And you can now win up to 100 times your money with as little as 4 correct picks. Think Steph Curry will get more than 4 3-pointers next week, or maybe Anthony Edwards will go for more than 27 points on any given night. Cook up hot takes with your friends and win real money this basketball season when you and your crew run your game on Prize Picks. Sign up today and get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. And Prize Picks also offers weekly promotions that can lead to big payouts like Taco Tuesday, every Tuesday, of course. Prize Picks discounts select player projections up to 25% to provide even more value to your lineup. So download the app today. Use the code LOCKEDONNBA, and you get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That's all you have to do. Download the app, use the code LOCKEDONNBA, and you get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, run your game. We'll be right back.
Thanks again for making Locked On Heat your first listen every day. The best way to support the show. Leave a 5-star rating and review on your favorite podcast app. Like and subscribe on YouTube. One thing on Prize Picks, I think there's still value on Duncan Robinson's over on 3-pointers made. He might continue to be in this starting lineup. Certainly is going to continue to get a lot of minutes. I think there's still some value there. We're going to talk about that here in a little bit. But, David, it's the second segment after a Miami Heat win, which means it's time for the tastiest segment in Locked On Heat. It's time to hand out some credit cookies. We've got 10 cookies to hand out. Who's getting cookies tonight?
I feel kind of rusty, and it feels like it's been a long time since we've been able to get out credit cookies.
A lot of these wins for the Heat have come on weekends, and we don't do a Friday night or a Saturday night show. It's like we kind of skip them.
Yeah, I can't recall the last time we did this. But
there's a lot of cookies in the cupboard to be handed out.
The easy part when awarding these cookies for tonight, obviously Jimmy Butler. He gets 4 cookies. Like his dominance, we talked about that in the first segment. I think the way he was able to set up the pace. Without him, Miami doesn't have a prayer. He comes into the second quarter when Miami was down 19, and he's the reason why they were able to cut the lead. I think there were some other players that certainly contributed, and that certainly in the third quarter, as I mentioned, Tyler Herro 16 points to help Miami pull away. But you have to start with Jimmy Butler. He gets 4 cookies. Tyler and his strong performance in that third quarter, despite the fact that he was a little off from his shooting overall, he gets 3 credit cookies, so a good game from him. Yeah. You think
3?
That's too high?
Okay. I had him marked down on my list for less, but go ahead.
Really?
I had him on my list, though.
Okay. I've got Drew Smith. Drew Smith gets a cookie. And maybe I'm too low.
I had 2 cookies for Drew.
Okay, I could see that being the case. You could give 2 to Tyler and 2 to Drew Smith, and I'd be fine with that, because I think Drew, like, he went in there and he was like, oh. And I'm sure a lot of Heat fans probably rolled their eyes a little bit. Oh, Drew Smith coming in, et cetera. No Terry Rozier, as I mentioned. You got to put somebody in there. But his defense on McCain, like, there are just some guys that probably just have your number at the NBA level. And NBA players talk about this all the time. It's like, oh, this is a matchup I just don't like. Drew Smith went in there and it was like, you know what? I don't give a damn about this rookie and his lottery pick or anything like that. I don't care about where he was taken or his Duke pedigree or his TikTok or anything. He just went in there and he locked him up. He did a great job of just harassing him, forcing him into bad passes, making him look uncomfortable with everything. Like Drew Smith was great. On top of that, he also hits a couple 3-pointers, had some really nice passes to help initiate offense as well. Like he is not, I would think, a trusted ball handler, but he was great today. Like a very, very good game from him. So I would be happy with giving him 2 credit cookies.
One more thing on Drew. I'm sorry.
Yes. No.
So he comes in, kind of plays most of his minutes in that second half. McCain, after a strong first half, goes 3 for 8 in the second half. Now, we don't have the matchup data yet. That usually kind of populates overnight. We'll have it tomorrow, and we'll get more of a idea of what McCain did specifically when Drew Smith was defending him. But just generally kind of looking at the timeline here, a lot of that time was with Drew Smith defending him, and he cooled off pretty significantly in the second half. He was awesome. He was awesome.
I would say one of those shots maybe was against Drew, so that means that he was 2 of whatever against somebody else. But that's fine. Drew was phenomenal, and again hitting those big shots. I also give a credit cookie to Alec Burks. Like
I've got 2 to Alec.
Okay, well I gave 1 to Haywood Highsmith there, so maybe that's where the disparity is. So I got 4, 3, and 1, 1, and 1. So I got 1 to Haywood Highsmith because I think he did a really good job of limiting Paul George, harassing him, using his defense, etc.
Like he was a plus 21 in this game.
Yeah, that's when he was out there, it was a huge difference maker. But Alec Burks, like you tweeted about it during the game, like they needed an offensive spark, and Burks came in there for the first time, and I feels like a week he hasn't really played, and he went in there and he was great playmaking, hitting a big shot, had a nice scoop layup too when Miami was making their comeback. Really great performance from him. So I don't know if he's going to be a permanent part of the rotation, but I can understand the reasoning behind Eric Spoelstra saying, you know what, we need something offensively. He's my go-to guy when I needed some points off the bench, and Alec Burks certainly lived up to that moment.
Heat fans just learned who Alec Burks is in this NBA and why he was signed by the Miami Heat. This is his job. This is what he does. Alec Burks is an assassin. He is a call for hire. That's what you do. Alec Burks is not a starter in the NBA anymore. He's not even a night-to-night rotation guy. He hasn't played in the last 5 games. A DNP-CD, just a scratch. But that's fine. Alec Burks knows what he signed up for. You got him at the minimum. He knows exactly. This is what he was for the Knicks last year too, including in the playoffs. It doesn't matter what stage. Alec Burks is always going to show up, and that's the thing about Alec. He's very consistent. He's a locker room favorite across the league. He's your favorite player's favorite player. He's like one of those guys, and it's because of that remarkable consistency and that professionalism, and he very much is that. This is his job. And you and I got so many questions. Should Alec Burks be playing over Josh Richardson? Should Alec Burks be starting? Should Alec Burks be doing this? Should he be doing that? The answer is no. This is what Alec Burks is in the NBA. This is his job. This is what he does. And that's why I tweeted it. In the second quarter, Eric Spoelstra's looking around and is like, well, you can't shoot. Your legs are tired. Your legs are tired. Your legs are tired. Guess whose legs aren't tired? This guy who hasn't been on the court in a week and a half. He's going to be just fine. He's going to be ready to go. And he puts him in there. And what happens? Alec Burks misses a 3. He misses a 3. Then he makes a 3. And then he makes that scoop layup. And then he kind of gets going. That's his job. He's a jolt. Yeah. He's just, when your battery's dead, you need to get some cables. And that's what Alec Burks does. So, and that's great. That's a great weapon to have. And that's something that the Heat didn't have last year. And they especially didn't have it on a night where, Terry Rozier, who can be that time to time, hasn't been that recently, but let's not kid ourselves. Like, he has that capability also. Wasn't in the game tonight because of this bothersome foot that he's dealing with. So, you look down the bench and Eric Spoelstra's like, go on in, Alec Burks. Go on in, Drew Smith. And I don't think it's lost. It shouldn't get lost that 3 of the guys that earned credit cookies tonight are 3 guys who have not played basically in a week and a half, 2 weeks. Point. Jimmy Butler, Alec Burks, and Drew Smith. On a second night of a back-to-back where it was clear that this team was tired, they needed some fresh energy. Jimmy Butler comes out right away, scores first possession of the game, burrows his way into the post, kicks out to Duncan Robinson for a decent look. Wasn't the best look. Duncan Robinson misses it, but Jimmy Butler, high usage rating, gets credit for that. Next 2 possessions, that patented push shot. Third possession, patented push shot over Caleb Martin, which was very weird to watch in person. But he was going early, 10 points in the first quarter for Jimmy Butler. All of that stuff is why the Miami Heat won this game.
I like your call out about Burks too, and something they haven't had in previous seasons. Like, in thinking about it right now, even as you're saying it, it's true. They have had guys on the roster who are mostly known for their defensive ability, PJ Tucker, they added Josh Richardson, et cetera. Like these are guys that are known for like, even Caleb Martin, like nobody cared about his offense. I mean, his defense was really what earned him minutes in the first place. And the fact that he was able to develop some kind of type of offense while he was here in Miami was kudos to their development system. But they really haven't had that guy to say, you know what? We need something. We need somebody to go in there and put up a couple points, make some plays. Burks also had 3 assists tonight. I like that he was out there.
Jamal Crawford type. Like those guys are just all around in the league, like and they stay in the league forever, right? Like these Ish Smith types, like they're just out there forever. They float around team to team. Alec Burks is one of them. And the Heat have always sort of, to your point, kind of balked on, that's not really for us. But I think Alec Burks very much is.
And given Miami's zone defense and the way that they played it so effectively against Philadelphia tonight, and they haven't over the course of the road trip, it minimizes whatever defensive issues there. Like Burks is known for as being an offensive player. His defense isn't great. It's never been great and never will be. But you know what? It doesn't matter because he can still function out there. Like he deflected a couple of passes. He was able to move well. Like when somebody was collapsing, et cetera, trying to hedge or anything, like he made his presence felt. And I think it really helped kind of turn the tide in Miami's favor to have him out there. So that's why he gets a credit cookie.
That's why. The Heat used a new starting lineup because they were forced to. No Terry Rozier, so they had to adjust. Third starting lineup of the season. Will they stick with it, or will it go back to what it was when Terry Rozier returns? We'll talk about that and get to some of your listener questions after this.
Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. And right now, new customers can bet just $5, just $5, and you get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. And sometimes you're watching a game. Let's say you're watching the Dolphins game, maybe a little bit of lull in the action. You get a hunch right in the middle of it. You want to check out the latest stats from around the league, or maybe you want to view live play-by-play around the league. Well, you can do that and so much more, all on the same page where you place your bets. How convenient is that? But only if you visit FanDuel.com and join today. You'll get started again with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet, but only at FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. We'll be right back.
Thanks again for making Locked On Heat your first listen every day. Let's get to some of these listener questions from the Locked On Heat Insider community. If you want to sign up to the Locked On Heat Insider community, you can do so with the link in the show notes. It's free for 14 days. It goes to $4.99 a month after that. These are the benefits. You get first dibs at answering or asking these mailbag questions, and guaranteed to get them answered as long as you get them in by the time we start recording, obviously. And you get exclusive access to talk with us one-on-one. I actually included a little bit of sourced information on Jimmy Butler and his trade viability today. So you're going to get some of that back of the scenes reporting from us if you sign up. But before we get to the Locked On Heat Insider community questions, I have a question for you, David.
Yeah, let's hear it.
Should this be the starting lineup going forward?
Oh, I kind of hinted that this might be a possible lineup that Spo could explore in a previous episode, and sure enough, that's exactly what he went to. And I was a little surprised to see it. I mean, if you're talking about just phasing Terry Rozier out of the starting lineup,
yes,
I think it makes sense. Like Terry's struggling in this role, and I think you saw enough of a balance. Like the starting lineup wasn't great, with the exception of, they were okay in the first quarter, mostly because Jimmy was back and he was healthy. On a night when Jimmy's not as aggressive, or maybe not able to get to the line as frequently as he did tonight, can you afford to have Terry out there kind of just putting up ill-advised shots near the rim and not being able to hit them at a high rate? You still needed somebody to put rim pressure, and basically it's Jimmy, then Terry, and then to some extent Tyler. You really don't have anybody else in the roster. So
Bam
I don't know.
Once in a while.
Bam every once in a while. Hyman maybe every once in a while, though. I keep getting his I think they figured out his timing a little bit, and he's not explosive enough. So I'm a little concerned as he comes back from injury and everything else like that. Yeah, my feeling is yes, he probably keep the lineup. I like the balance. I like the idea of Haywood continue to be out there. It feels a little undersized, but you know what? This is who they've been. And I know the alternative is Khalil Ware or Niko Jovic. Well, guess what? I don't think Ware's ready. He keeps not getting any playing time. Maybe you can put that solely at Spo and his decision making, and maybe he's making a bad choice. But from what we've seen of him, he hasn't really stood out. He has some moments, and maybe you could say, you know what, Miami's not going to accomplish anything. Just lean into the whole Khalil Ware experience. Well, that's not how this team operates. If that's what you want for this group, you can forget about it. They're never going to do that. They're never going to just sacrifice the possibility of winning the season to develop somebody like that.
Okay, yeah, I'm sorry. I shouldn't have interrupted you because you're right. That last point is what, and they're not going to sacrifice the but if it becomes clear that that possibility is no longer a possibility, then I think they would go in that direction. And
if they're 20 games under 500, sure.
Yeah, well, even I think after the 20 game mark of this season, you might, and I'm not saying this is going to happen, but if you're, every front offices tend to reevaluate their team after about 20 games, and they kind of do it again around the trade deadline and stuff like that. So maybe if it was after 20 games, we're not really cut out for the
Where would they have to be at the 20 game mark for Pat to say we just don't have
I don't think they're going to be there, so that doesn't matter, but maybe by the trade deadline that's something different. So hopefully not. No, I think you're right to include Haywood Highsmith in this because that's also a big addition here. Kevin Love is out, right? So Kevin Love took Nikola Jovic's spot in the starting lineup. Both of them are now on the bench. Kevin Love is now the primary backup behind Bam. Sometimes they'll experiment with Nico at the 5 as well as sort of a small ball lineup. I'm okay with this. There's no version of a big Miami Heat lineup. If you want to criticize Spo for going with undersized lineups all the time, cool. Show me the power forward next to Bam that works, or the center next to Bam that works. They've tried Kevin Love for 3 years now, for 3 and 4 game spurts, and they can never stick with it because it doesn't hold up defensively, and also because they need Kevin Love as the backup center because there's no other centers on this roster who are capable of giving you 10 to 14 solid minutes on a nightly basis, right? They tried Thomas Bryant. It didn't work. They tried Khalil Ware. It didn't work. He got outscored by 5 points in 3 minutes on Friday night with him on the court against Indiana. He's just not ready, and this team, like you said, they're still trying to win games here, and every minute matters in a lot of these games that they're playing are a lot of close games. So, yeah, this is just what it is. There's not a big option that works. All right, then I guess we got to go small, and they'll do this until teams figure it out, and then they'll adjust again, and that's probably what's going to happen. But for now, I like this starting lineup, and I think they should stick with it, and I think we know that Rozier and Hero doesn't work. It doesn't work. They can't do it. So we'll have another few days to dig into this and ask this questions more, but let's get to some of these listener questions. Malachi writes in, does Drew Smith deserve more playing time, or is he too far down the depth chart to be considered to have more playing time? I guess Malachi's real point is, does he need to play every night? Like, is that really what more playing time is, or does he remain sort of a break glass in case of emergency?
That won't happen. I mean, obviously, we're talking about the possibility of Terry being demoted or taken out of the starting lineup. If you want to look at it that way, if that's the case, he's going to take over the ball handling duties, or he's going to be the backup point guard, even though he's probably more a 2 in a point guard's body. I like what Drew brings in terms of defensive intensity, and if you're getting cooked by a point guard, then certainly I think he's a viable option, and Spo should kind of utilize him in that sense. Like it should be matchup based. If like you're getting roasted by a point guard, throw him out there in a game like, say, LaMelo Ball, a divisional rival. If Jalen Suggs has it going for some reason, etc., throw Drew Smith out there, see if he can create a little havoc and make things going your way. But his offense is so low, despite what we saw tonight against Philadelphia, that I just don't think he's a viable option for that much more playing time. He's not going to be a consistent rotation player, but he's certainly a better option, and I think he brings more defensively than Josh Richardson or Terry Rozier as a backup point guard.
The Rozier point is a great one. If Rozier ends up becoming sort of this 6-man point guard off the bench, then all of a sudden you don't really need Drew Smith, and you might not even need Josh Richardson if this team is healthy, depending on where they want to go. So, yeah, Pelle Larsson is kind of moving up the depth chart. I thought he had some good minutes tonight. Drew Smith is on a 2-way contract. You're not supposed to rely on these guys night to night because you can't, right? Because of the regulations on that 2-way. So, probably not, but he's good to have in the developmental pipeline, and Miami's sticking with him for a reason. Another question for Malachi. Is this what we should expect from Bam this season? Very good defensively and rebounding, but hot and cold from the offensive side of things.
I guess so. I don't know. I'm not sure what to make of Bam at this point because we talked about it before the season started. The 3-point shooting was fine, although maybe you were a little more optimistic about it than I was, and he did hit a 3-pointer tonight, and that's fine. But he's just looks so incapable offensively in a way that I didn't think he was going to regress this much. And as much as he gave defensively, he took away a lot offensively. So I don't know if this is going to be the normal, because even just a couple episodes ago, we talked about the possibility of maybe Bam having his breakout, and maybe this is going to be the new normal. He's going to figure it out, and then he goes and lays his egg offensively tonight. So I it could happen. I mean, I wouldn't bet against this being the case where he's just going to always do what he does in terms of defense and bringing playmaking and being able to crash the boards, but his offense is going to be hit or miss. And most of the times this season, it's clearly been miss. And maybe that should just be the expectation moving forward. And maybe everybody will be happier that way. Although, again, given his salary, people are going to expect him to be a 25-point per game player. I just don't know if he's capable of that at this point.
I know Embiid, we already talked about how he doesn't look right. He's still 7 feet tall. He's still just a big whole bunch of human body parts in front of Bam Adebayo in the basket. This has always been rough. Bam, it doesn't always go off against the 76ers for exactly that reason. It's okay when Jimmy Butler has it going. If Jimmy Butler doesn't have it going, then you expect Bam to maybe pick it up. It's got to be one of those two guys every single night. I don't know what to expect from Bam going forward. C2D2 writes in, and we got to go lightning round on these next three. I think Nikola Jovic should be playing over Alec Burks or Josh Richardson, especially when we're up in points. He makes defensive boneheaded mistakes from time to time, talking about Jovic, but we will need him when we play against tougher teams. He needs to learn. Josh Richardson plays one side of the ball, the defensive side. He's not good offensively. Jovic plays serviceable defense, just absent-minded from time to time. This is not like Rozier because he knows not to keep bricking shots when he doesn't have it. Do you agree?
I don't know. I mean, with Nico, again, I like what he brings on occasion. I mean, I'm a little surprised that C2T2 thought that Josh brings something defensively, because I think he's been horrible defensively, to be honest with you. I think he's mostly out there for the idea of defense and being able to score on occasion. It's an imperfect bench, and Spoelstra is still trying to find the right balance. I would like Nico to play more, because I think he just brings something that nobody else in the roster can in terms of ability and talent.
I want Pelle Larsson to play more. He's sort of been Miami's best bench player for most of the season.
Yes, but
that's sort of where
he's peppering in like good games and then sandwiching them around like really bad stretches too, where he cannot hit a bucket. And that's the expectation. Like, he's a guy who brings a lot of effort, but the offense wasn't always there. Like, maybe he'll have.
I shouted him out because Pelle Larsson and Josh Richardson were both. They were minus 23 and minus 21 respectively. So
there you go.
Maybe not the best guy to shout out there. Doug writes in, the stats look great for Jimmy, but is this the best this team can put together? A month ago, I think Dwayne Wade said that Bam could be getting the next statue. Now he seems like a role player. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, it's a good point. Bam needs to do more, and I'm sure nobody knows this more than he does. I just think that he's much more comfortable leaning into all those other aspects of his game that are his clear strengths, and scoring probably not one of them. And so, although we've seen some nice performances, it's probably not going to be something that we can see consistently at this point. So, I mean, I know that we're already talking about at this point, I use that phrase, and it's like, well, this is year 8. Like, you should have figured it out by now, but he hasn't for whatever reason. Like, whether it's just not natural for him, or he's just trying to find the right balance in his offense, or he tries to play too much and allow Jimmy or Tyler or somebody else to take over. Bam is just not. It's clearly not an offensive player, and I don't know that he will be moving forward.
He's had 6 games this year out of the 12 where he's scored at least 16 points. He's got 2 30-point games. And then he's got 6 games where he's scored less than 16 points. It's not been awful. It has been hot or cold. I think that's fair to say. Has Bam Adebayo become the new Tyler Hero? Where it's just the opinion of the fan base just goes crazy on every single night with him. Bam's an amazing defensive player. He's an incredible offensive player. He when in the ways that he contributes in terms of screening, rebounding, passing, all these things. Like, he's so important to this team, and I'm so sick of trying to explain why it is that Bam earns the salary that he has. And like I said, 6 of the 12 games, he's been very good offensively. The other 6 games have been really bad. Like, the lows have been very low. And I'm not trying to make excuses for him. Like, the floor needs to get higher for Bam, but it typically has been. And I'm still holding out hope and being patient as he kind of finds his spot in this offense.
Same.
Last one, Cody writes in, the Heat ran more offense through Tyler Hero and Jimmy Butler throughout tonight's game, and in doing so, Bam struggled offensively. Is it troubling that Bam isn't even generating shot? We kind of just answered that question, but I'm I'm not going to be overly concerned with Bam until maybe the 20 game mark, and then I'll kind of reevaluate things.
It's a realistic look at this team to say that everybody, with the exception of Jimmy Butler, is kind of overvalued in terms of how they've been paid and in terms of what their ceiling is. They are not 1A players. Like, if you have a 1A player, it's Jimmy, and even that you can struggle to make that argument that maybe he doesn't deserve that designation. Everybody else is basically a really, really good role player, whether it's Tyler as a scorer, Bam as an all-purpose player. Everybody else below them are just good role players. This is a team that has lacked a superstar, which is why they've made these attempts to get a Dame Lillard, a Kevin Durant, etc. They're missing that piece. The front office knows it. The fan base knows it. The players probably know it. And they're fine because they've still achieved a lot of success. They just haven't been able to achieve the kind of success fans want, which is a championship.
Well, they beat the Sixers tonight, so they got that going. Next game isn't until
Optimism.
Friday
Yay.
night.
Yeah.
We got a bit of a break here, but that doesn't mean that we're going away. We got another episode tomorrow. Rohan Nadkarni will be joining us later in the week as well. Got a lot more content up until the next Heat game, so stay here. Tune in to Locked On Heat. Thanks for making Locked On Heat your first listen every day. Like, comment, and subscribe on YouTube. Follow us on your favorite podcast app.